Hello, everybody, and welcome to Dublin, Ohio, and welcome to the mall at Tuttle Crossing. This has been a bucket list mall for me for many years now, and I was finally able to do it on my way down to Cincinnati for my Cincinnati trip in May, and it did not disappoint. I spent a few hours here, and honestly, if I didn't have a time crunch to get down the date in Cincinnati, I would have spent longer here. This was a beautiful mall. This is a original Taubman Mall. Well, this one was 50-50, but it has many of the features that you guys see the typical Taubman malls, and you guys know that I really do enjoy those. And as on this channel, I've been to many other of their malls, which does include the Lake Forest Mall, the Lakeside Mall, and the West Farm Mall in Connecticut, just to name a few that I've been to. And Taubman really built very unique looking malls, and they have certain features that I could just spend hours staring at. And in this particular one, it was definitely and the elevators. I mean, it kind of reminded me of like the old cruise ship elevators. I could have spent hours looking at that, as well as those really cool lights that you guys just saw, about 15-20 seconds ago, and the area all around all the anchor stores, like the way they built the architecture, really nice. They really did a good job with their mall, and it's a shame that this mall has started to have its certain struggles, but there's two other big malls in Columbus that are really killing this mall, and I didn't have time to go to those, but one of these times I will make it, out there. This is not all that far. It's about 4 hours for me, but for me, that's not that far. But in any event, now the history of this mall is somewhat scarce, but the history that I did find was that the mall was originally planned for a different site on Sawmill Road and State Route 161. And those plans not materialized, and that spot later became a Sun Center in 1994. Now, the current spot of this mall, was eventually, this is where the mall ended up going, and it opened up on July 11th, 1997, with 4 original anchor stores, which was Sears, Lazarus, Marshall Fields, and a JCPenney, which is still there. So they have one original anchor left. But in 2003, the Lazarus, that was rebranded to a Lazarus Macy's, and the original Marshall Fields also that year did become a Kaufman's. Now in 2005, Lazarus, which is part of the Federated Corporation, was also Macy's. They decided to just form all their stores into the Macy's name, and in 2005, this became a Lazarus Macy's and then became a Macy's. Now that would create a particular problem at this mall because, as you guys know, a year later would be the May Federated merger, which they owned Kaufman's, and they would retire the Kaufman name into a Macy's. So that would make 2 Macy's at this mall. And their solution was kind of interesting because this mall officially titled them 2 different Macy's. The Macy's that is still open, that was Macy's at Tuttle Crossing, name of the mall. Now, the Macy's that is now closed, that you guys just saw as the entertainment building, and we'll get to that in a minute, that was officially called Macy's at Hayden Run. Now, even though they were called 2 different Macy's, the other Macy's that was at the time, that was men's and as well as your home goods. But then in 2017, and Macy's just decided as part of a plan to slim down operations. They ended up closing the Macy's at Hayden Run and just moved what merchandise was there into the main Macy's building, which is still open to this day. And we'll see how much longer it will last, with this mall struggles, and Macy's still planning on closing stores. It very well could close, but at the same time, and I did mention this in the Macy's video, that particular Macy's looks better than I thought, and the lens crafters just moved from the mall into the Macy's building, so I think that this Macy's has a chance of making it, and I would be quite happy, because I really did enjoy my time in there as well, and I did make a purchase in there. But that's not the point. The point of this video is the mall. Now, like I mentioned, in 2017, and Macy's closed down the Macy's at Hayden Run, which is now the entertainment building. That opened up in 2018, and then later on in 2018, this mall, it would get a second big hit as the Sears announced it was closing. As part of the plan to close 80 Sears stores nationwide, as they were in Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and that Sears to this day is still empty. And honestly, I don't see much going in there because Mr. Eddie Lampert still owns that and is not filling it. So that does hurt this mall. But this mall still having 2 traditional anchors. It's still hanging in there. And by the way, as we speak, its current owners is now Namdar Realty Group. As this mall has had three different owners. So it originally Taubman Center, and then it became a Mills Corporation mall, and then Simon got it, and it went into receivership in 2020, and that's how. And then Namdar Realty has it now, and Namdar's history is not the best. You guys know I've been to a few Namdar malls, probably more than a few, but I lost track. But they're known to just letting their malls kind of sit there and not like really do anything. They don't really fill their spots, and it just continues to get empty and empty and empty. But we'll see here. I think this mall has a chance to survive. The biggest issue, like I mentioned before, is that there's two other healthy malls here in Columbus. Easton, which is technically an outdoor mall, but I still consider it a mall, as well as the Polaris Mall, which is in Polaris. But in any event, honestly, this mall's not as bad as I thought. I've been seeing pictures of this mall for years. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to go, and it looked a lot worse online. Is it definitely having struggles like I've been saying? Of course it is, and with a bad owner. But I honestly think that it's not as bad as I thought. It's still having, for now, two big anchors filled is definitely a decent sign for this mall. And, in the entertainment building in the other Macy's, that was a very interesting concept. And I've noticed that with malls these days, having entertainment, really does bring in and the younger people. So we'll see. Only time will tell what will happen to this mall. I do hope it makes it, because I really did enjoy my time, like I mentioned before. But you guys can, of course, and comment down below and what you think of the future of the mall. I would love to hear you guys have to say. But in any event here, guys, I am going to stop blabbing as my voice is getting tired. And I'll still get the rest of the video. If you guys do enjoy this video, just make sure to hit like, comment, and of course, and subscribe to the channel for more content. I have plenty more content coming soon from the Cincinnati trip, as well as I have one more decent-sized trip here at the end of summer come up in August, which I'll be filming plenty of videos of. I'm not going to say where yet, but just stay tuned for that. But in any event, Alex Weinsheimer's out live from the mall Tuttle Crossing, and I will talk to you guys later, and enjoy the rest of the video. Bye-bye, guys.